Hi guys, it's Rhaenyra, and this is going to be a little different. This is going to be me reading the first chapter of my own fanfiction, a Hetalia fanfiction. And just some quick background for you, because it may get confusing. Canada was colonized by France in 1534. Britain colonized America in 1607. Britain gained control of Canada in 1763. America became independent in 1776. Canada became independent in 1867. Britain built Sealand in 1942, and Sealand declared itself independent in 1975. So those are some quick facts that you will need. Chapter 1. Canada's Discovery, 1534. And I will be trying to be as in character as possible. Why is it so cold? I can barely see. The only source of warmth was a small white creature in my arms. The creature shifted, then twisted up in my arms to look at my face. He, I assumed it was a he, smiled at me, and I smiled back gently. "I'll call you Kumajiro," I said. My voice was obviously a little loud for his sensitive ears, so I repeated myself, this time in a whisper. "I'll call you Kumajiro." I didn't bother keeping track of the time. There was no point, it was only me and Kumajiro. He taught me how to catch fish and keep warm by digging in the snow and building a small hut. In exchange, I taught myself how to make maple syrup so that every so often we could have a sugary treat. I got into the habit of whispering so softly that I could barely hear myself, simply because Kumajiro's ears were so sensitive that he could hear me humming from half a mile away. One day, I heard voices. It was the first time I had heard a human voice besides my own. Kumajiro was startled, which in turn made me a little bit frightened. I picked him up, and together we snuggled close inside the snow hut. The voices became louder. "I do not understand, Angleterre," one of the voices said. "You are the one whose weather is always miserable, so why are you complaining about the cold?" "It is never this cold in my country," another higher-pitched voice shrieked, "and my weather is not miserable, it is simply temperamental." Sure," the first voice replied. Both voices became silent as their crunching footsteps came closer. "What is this?" the higher-pitched voice asked. The first voice mused. "It looks like a house, small enough for a child." I squeezed Kumajiro tighter and pulled away from the entrance to our snow hut, my heart racing. A face appeared in the entrance. It was a handsome face, a tiny bit feminine, framed by long, soft-looking blonde hair. The only thing that made me think it was a man was the strong chin with a light 5 o'clock shadow. The man's eyes lit up, and a smile creased his face. He pulled away from the entrance and said loudly, "Angleterre, it is a child!" I flinched, having become used to my own quiet voice and the soft sounds of the barren Iceland that was my home. Kumajiro also flinched, burying his small face in my chest. Another face appeared in the entrance, this one much more frightening than the last. The most prominent features were his huge eyebrows, which his sandy blonde bangs did absolutely nothing to hide. He didn't smile when he caught sight of me. Rather, his huge eyebrows pulled together, giving his face a worried look. He drew away slowly, never taking his eyes off of me. "What is that creature?" he asked the other man. I suppose that was what they thought was a whisper, but Kumajiro had trained me to be able to hear a fish jumping out of the water 50 feet away from the shore. "It's probably a native animal," the one with the lengthy hair answered. "It's a polar bear," I tried to tell them. "His name is Kumajiro." They didn't hear me. I tried again, a little bit louder. Still, it seemed as though my voice was too soft for them to notice. Gathering up my courage, I crawled toward the opening of the snow hut, clutching Kumajiro close to my heart. Both the men stared, obviously startled, when I emerged. I took a long look at the both of them, just in case I would ever need to recognize them. The 5 o'clock shadow man was tall and lean and very good-looking. His blonde locks fell freely around a face that I instantly felt I could trust. He was wearing something that looked completely out of place against the white glare of the snow. It was bright blue and rather frilly as well. I shook my head at the fact that he wasn't wearing a heavy coat or a scarf or anything that would protect him from the freezing cold or the blistering wind. The man with the eyebrows was much smaller than the 5 o'clock shadow man. He was wearing an olive-green uniform, military, my instincts told me, and he was glaring at Kumajiro the same way that a seal glares at a polar bear in the moments before it gets eaten. In a vain attempt to comfort him, I smiled and held out Kumajiro. With a shriek loud enough to wake the seals beneath the ice, he jumped backward and promptly fell on his bottom. "Did you see that?" he shrieked at the other man, who was doubled over with laughter. "He tried to attack me! This is not a laughing matter!" I, too, was giggling softly, and even Kumajiro seemed to be smiling at the small man's panic. With a huff, the man picked himself up and began dusting snow off his uniform. Still choking back laughter, I turned to the taller man and offered him Kumajiro. He reacted much better than the little one, reaching out and scooping Kuma up without hesitation, cradling him in his blue-clad arms. "His name is Kumajiro," I tried to tell the man. He looked at me for a second before saying gently, "Bien-ami, you must speak louder. I cannot hear you." What was that? I sighed, then repeated in a much louder voice, "His name is Kumajiro." "Ah," he smiled. "Kumajiro, eh? You are adorable, aren't you?" The man in the green stared at us for a second, before sighing and picking up a bag off the ground. "You can have him if you want, France," he sighed. I cocked my head to the left, confused. The man gave Kumajiro back to me before turning to the other one. I hugged Kuma tight as they began to talk. "Are you sure, Arthur?" the tall one, France, asked. "Yes, I am sure, Francis," the small one, Arthur, replied sharply. "It's much too cold up here for my liking, and besides, I don't trust that animal." I looked down at Kumajiro, trying to see why Arthur didn't like him. He seemed the same as always, with soft white fur and shining black eyes. He was cute, not scary. "Oh well," I murmured, squeezing Kuma lightly. "Maybe it's a good thing," my mind whispered. "This Arthur fellow doesn't seem very nice." I looked up to see Arthur walking away slowly. Francis watched him go, melancholy painting his fine features. After a few seconds, France seemed to shake whatever was bothering him away. He turned back to me with a smile. "Et to see them go, love to watch them walk away, oui?" I had no idea what he meant, so I simply nodded in ignorant agreement. France smiled wider at my nodding, seemingly pleased with my answer. "You and I, little one, I believe are going to be very good friends." He picked me up easily and started carrying me in the same direction Arthur had walked a few moments before. I had no idea where we were going, nor any clue as to why we had to leave, but I trusted this man, France. And that is the end of Chapter 1, Canada's Discovery. So yeah, like the video if you enjoyed this. Tell me what you think of my writing, because yes, this is all in my head. I started this at some hour of the night, and I ended up writing most of this between the hours of 1 and 4 in the morning. So yeah, thank you for watching.